You see, again, as if it's an isolated incident. But when you look at these farmers who have been looking at rains for aeons, I mean, for, a human lifespan and their grandfather's lifespan and their great-grandfather's lifespan, they know everything that's going on in the ecology. And when they see oily film, in their water glass, and then they see it in the crops, and all the crops are dying, they know. So here's what I think everybody should do. If you live Texas east, right up the middle, I'm talking South Dakota, North Dakota, Kansas, Oklahoma east, get a glass, a clean glass, and set it out when it rains. And then the next morning, collect the glass and look at the water. If it's murky, if it's even slightly discolored, have it tested. Make a little video and send it to NOAA, send it to your congressman. And we need to do this in droves, because this, the reason I'm wanting to go on Coast to Coast tonight, and thank you for having me on in short notice, is to tell people that we need to wake up, because this is the potential for the largest cancer epidemic we've ever seen. We know that these chemicals, if you ingest them through breathing or through drinking the water, you're to be in serious trouble. It's a very, very high-risk situation. But
well, the first thing they have to do, David, they got to stop this leak.
Yeah, that's the first thing. And here's what I think in their strategy. I have connections everywhere in the military. I have a friend who works at Boeing, and I tried getting some of these non-toxic solutions to him. I tried getting him my connection to NOAA, who does so much good work, and thank you very much for all the work. And what we're seeing is there's a total emphasis on capping the well. How are we going to cap this well? Why don't we know how to cap it, and why didn't we know how to cap it before the incident even took place? Well, from my connection at Lockheed Martin, our friend Boyd Bushman, I've mentioned many times, he told me in an email on July the 6th, in 10 days, the oil well will be capped. He didn't say we're trying a new technique. He said it will be capped. And I thought, how could he know that? Because here we are, July 13th, pretty much, and we've got the most successful cap to date. Now, we still don't know.
Let's hope it works.
Let's hope it works. But the emphasis has been from the Admiral on the oil spill. Let's just forget about the marshes, forget about the wildlife, forget about the people. Let's just cap the well. And if I were the Admiral in charge, I would have had an army of these natural non-toxic solutions placed on the oil before it hit the lines, not after and not during. And what we're seeing now is all of the focus is on capping the well, which is good, but we need just as much attention on the beaches and the people and the whole marshlands and the ecology, and that has not happened at all. That is not. All of the natural non-toxic solutions are being turned down. And one of the things I heard this came from the general in charge of the spill. Oh, we don't want all of that, cotton waste fluff floating around. So you don't want the cotton waste floating around, even though it absorbs the oil, and it won't float around because it's going to be wet. But you don't have a solution. You didn't deploy another solution and solve the problem. So we have a failure here. And now, as I've said before, the fumes in the Gulf that are evaporating, and from fuel that's still sitting there and will be sitting there for months and months to come.
Sure.
That fuel poses the greatest threat.
I mean, the immediate cleanup of the beaches, we can do that later. We have to be able to stop this, get the environment cleaned up in terms of the air we breathe, and then start cleaning up.
Yeah, I mean, we could have did it all. We could have hit all fronts at the same time, which is what I would have done. But they've turned down so many good ideas.
Yeah, they seem to be very resistant to other ideas. I've got a person who's been emailing me plans for capping this, and he's frustrated because nobody wants to listen to him. Nobody will. And, you call BP, and they've got these employees just answering the phone, and, everybody's got an idea, but one of them may actually work, but they don't want to listen to anybody.
They don't want to listen to anybody, and that is our government's fault, that they're not listening, and they're not, if they had a better solution, like they had this young 12-year-old girl on CNN who came up with a brilliant solution to plug the wellhead. And all these, super PhDs are sitting there scratching their heads thinking, why didn't we think of that? But they didn't deploy her idea, even though it probably would have worked.
Yeah, there's been talk about, mass exits from one region to another. But I got to tell you, David, to me that's not realistic. I just don't see people picking up, leaving their homes, what homes they may own right now, leaving their jobs, going someplace else. They can't do it. They're stuck.
You're right. Most people can't afford to do it. Only the rich can afford to do that. So that's why I suggest if you live in the area, get a glass, test your water, use really good water purifiers in rows, because one pass through a filter is not going to clean your water if you have toxic rains in your area going into your water supplies and your aquifers. But we have months ahead of us. I mean, the month of August is sure to bring a huge amount of volume of rain into the Gulf and all of the different eastern United States, depending on where those storms travel.
Is the toxicity primarily the chemicals they've been using? Because oil by itself, is organic. I mean, do you see that as the problem, or is it the chemicals they've dumped into it?
That's a really good question, because firstly, yes, the natural crude oil has benzene, chromium, mercury, toluene, sulfur dioxide, and other volatile organic compounds. But the Brexit, which BP is illegally spraying into the Gulf, helps evaporate those fuels faster, which is bad for what we're talking about. But according to what James Ross found, the chemicals in the Corexit are utterly deadly. I mean, can cause bleeding of the kidneys and total meltdown of your organs inside of your body if you get enough of your system. So it's really outrageous that they were allowed to use that. I mean, the only thing that's going to survive in the Gulf, from what I can see with all of these chemicals, are probably the genetically modified salmon you were talking about earlier.
Yeah. And they'll grow to be about 12 feet long.
And it's funny because Lake Mead and also Lake Powell. I was talking to some people who have been established on the lake, since the 1950s, and the Forest Service brought in bass, thinking, how cool would it be to bring in another fish when they already had beautiful freshwater salmon and trout, and the bass ate all of the salmon. So that's what happens when you do things like, you create a mutated salmon, and next thing you know, it's going to come in and eat everything in sight.
Tell me about this study at the University of Irvine.